everyone. Welcome to the International Day of the Girl interview series. Today with us, we have Kayla Kenelly, and she is a business owner, a mother, a wife, and she's here to talk to us about her journey to to becoming a business owner and her path to being a successful woman. Kayla, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. We are super thrilled to have you here. I want my audience to learn a little bit more about you, and if you could just share what got you here, to becoming the owner or founding Vina on Wheels, and how you're inspired, and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So my background, so I live here in Caldwell, New Jersey. I'm from Minnesota originally, so moved out to the East Coast when I went to college, went to Iona College. Told my mom I wanted to get away from Minnesota, and she said, okay, then you have to pay for college. So took out a bunch of student loans and ended up staying in New York. But so yeah, so I launched Vino on Wheels in May of this year. So it's pretty new. My background, I've been in the financial services industry for over 10 years. So started my career at BNY Mellon, went to a startup in between my current firm, which is global investment bank. So I've always been in the financial services career, which has been a great profession, but I've always felt like something's missing a little bit more from the creativity side of me and wanting to really launch something myself so I can look back and say, I did this along the way. So really, Vino on Wheels, we launched the company in May of this year, as I said. And essentially it's a wine tap truck for events. And it's something that it's really fun to add to events. We've had this idea for a long time. And my dad, really what got us to pull the trigger is my dad unfortunately passed away in December of last year. It was really sudden. And I had this idea for many years. I had a business plan ready and never really pulled the trigger. And I think, going through that experience, realizing that, your time on earth can be short. I talked to my husband and said, let's just do it. So we launched in May. So that's kind of my story.
Congratulations. That is fantastic. And I'm sorry about your father.
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes it's the traumatic events that make us wake up and realize that, hey, I have a dream that I would like to fulfill before before it's too late that we can do it.
Yeah, exactly. That was really, what got me to pull that trigger to do it. And I'm so happy that we did. So,
Yes, yes, we need more people that can follow their dreams and more people that have the courage to do the work, and show
mhm.
up in the world with their ideas and their drive. Um, Speaking of the drive, from being in the I'm moving back to the finance, uh, because you're part of the finance environment. Being
Mhm.
that traditionally has been a male dominated field, um, how do you think, or what do you think the girls would encourage young girls to stay focused and follow their passion, if that's what it is, that they want to be part of a finance field or a STEM field, math, tech, engineering, etc.?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think for me, I mean, first, finance, I'm probably biased, but it's an amazing career path, especially for young women. I think when you think of finance, most people think it's just number crunching and you have to be really good at numbers. And I think that turns a lot of people off, especially women. But I decided to study finance honestly because as I said, I was paying for my own college. And so I was like, okay, if I'm paying all this money, I want to go into a career that not only I'm helping people, but then I'm learning about it for myself and my own personal finance. So that was actually why I decided to go into finance. Um, But what I found is there's so many different avenues within financial services. You can be an advisor, you can work in marketing at a financial services company, you can do sales, which is what I do today. And so I think that's a misperception, I think, from a lot of people, and why I think a lot of women specifically don't go into the field. And I think to your question about, maybe advice for women going into male dominated fields, I've in most of my jobs have been one of the only females on the team. It's just naturally male dominated. And I think there's disadvantages, but there's actually a lot of benefits that outweigh that. And so I think my advice, first and foremost, when you're looking for a job, like, do your research and ask the right questions during the interview process. What I specifically did was I looked on glassdoor.com, which is a website. It shows reviews. And I searched for the keyword women to see just how they treat, women in the environment. I asked questions about what the culture is like, right? Try to sift that out in the beginning. And then I think the second thing I would say is find female and male mentors and sponsors throughout the way. What I find is hopefully women want to help other women, especially those who are in, a position of power or influence in the organization. And so usually when they're asked to be a mentor, it's something that they want to do. And so if you can find those people around you that support you, that bring you up for opportunities when you're not in the room, I think that's a very important thing to find. So there's definitely downsides, but I've found that there's a lot of upside in working in more of a male dominated industry.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, women are 50% of the workforce,
Yeah.
and therefore 50% of the buying power. So not having a woman in the team when you are in an environment where you're selling services, the company is at a disadvantage because then now you're not connecting with your customer, which is
Yeah.
percent of your customers, So I think there is so much room for women and young girls to be represented in these fields. And
Yeah.
we do bring a different perspective, the female perspective into the room, and the intuitive part, and all those things that come with being a woman. So I agree with what you're saying, and I would like to see more women and young girls following the path of of STEM, of these fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And you did mention a little bit about mentorship, which I feel it's extremely important.
Mhm.
What kind of role have you played in that area, being a mentor, or have you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think mentorship is honestly the reason why I've gotten to where I am today, and just even confidence. I feel that a lot of what mentors do, or their role, is giving you the confidence to believe in yourself, especially if you are in a male dominated culture that you're just not used to. And so for me, it's really important. I think, I love mentoring women, men, it doesn't really matter, but I feel like, that's something that I hold near and dear is, giving people the confidence, especially when you're young in your career. I think it's real. I remember when I was interviewing for my first job, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been in the industry very long. Like, they're going to know I don't know anything. But what I found is a lot of times the companies, they just want to know, do you have a good work ethic? Can you work hard? Can you be coached? Like, are you a good cultural fit? And if you can show that in the interview, it's much better. So that's just like one thing that I talk to a lot of, women that I mentor. Not a lot. I have a few that I mentor. So I think it's really important. And I think it's important, to seek those people out and not be afraid to do that. Like I said, I think inherently a lot of people want to be in that seat and be mentored, because I think even the higher you get up in an organization, a lot of people have what's called imposter syndrome, where, they think they're going to be found out because they don't know what they're doing. But then if you have someone coming to you saying, oh, I look up to you, can you give me advice? It's something that, gives them a little pep in their step that they'll want to do. And so I think my advice is just don't be afraid, like find that person that you connect with and make it genuine, right? Don't just say, okay, I need a mentor, so I'm going to choose this person. It's like really find that person that you know that you want to get advice from.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important that if you're looking for someone to mentor you, you find a person you can connect as well,
Yeah.
that you're genuinely interested in what they have to say, not just because of their position of authority or power in the company.
Yeah. Yeah, and that shines through, right? And so I think like being genuine about it is really important because they're busy, right? So it's like they're taking time out of their day because they care. And I think another piece of that is like coming prepared to those sessions, right? Like what do you want to get out of it? Being upfront with them, hey, I need help with X. Can you help talk me through it? Because versus just more the casual, oh, let's meet and what do we have to talk about? Like I think, being more deliberate, but then also keeping it, more organic.
I agree. I agree. Um, you're in the finance field. I think financial independence is extremely important, and right now, so many people are looking toward and feel that that's become a goal in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you? What advice would you give to young girls that they're looking at their career in the future and thinking, or like you had to go to school and get, in college and get student loans, right? And then
Yeah.
try to become financially independent. So what kind of advice would you offer to them, um, regardless of their career choice, just being financially independent as a goal?
Yeah, I think education is key and it's unfortunate, but and I just looked up this stat recently to see how it's changed. But as of this year, only 22 of the 50 states require a personal finance course in the curriculum in high schools. Which even a couple of years ago, that was a lot less. So it's getting better, but my point is it's not anyone's fault that this isn't taught right in the school system, or it's not their fault that it's just not readily available. And so I think women in particular have to work extra hard to seek out that education, whether it's through parents, whether it's through online, but although be careful of what you read on like Reddit and there's so much information out there. And so I think that's what I would say is seek out the information, look at, budgeting, I think budgeting is very important, saving more than you spend, and then really just understanding, how to make the good choices. Cause that's really what personal finance is it's a trade-off between choices. And so I think also, to me, financial independence, it doesn't really mean how much money you have. I think it means something different to everyone. It could mean, I don't want to depend on anyone, financially. It could mean, I want a job, but then also want to have a family life. Right. And so like really understanding what that is. But yeah, my advice would be, you have to be proactive about it. Unfortunately, it's not just kind of fed to you in a lot of the school systems. It's getting better though.
How important do you think investing is in this picture of financial independence for young people? Because time, I feel the time value is one of the most important parts when you invest. So if you could,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think in investing, when you think of investing, it doesn't just have to be, taking whatever money you have and just putting it right in the stock market. Like, I think that's part of it, but a lot of it is more, stocking money away in your retirement. Like which also goes to the stock market. But for example, when you're starting a job, I think a lot of people new to their careers think, okay, I need that extra $100, $200, whatever a month. And so I'm not going to put that away for retirement because, I'll figure that out later. But it's pretty miraculous if you look at the numbers of what the time value of money can do. And, that $100 could mean a lot more. You could become a millionaire, by the time that you're retiring. And so that is extremely important. It's very difficult, especially when you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of money and you want to spend the money on the fun stuff. But when you actually kind of goes back to the education and understanding that, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I wanted to go back a little bit to your business, and I know you explained why you started the business, that was always your dream. But would you have any advice, or what kind of advice did you have for maybe young women that are looking to take the leap of faith and invest some money into creating their own business and founding their own business?
Yeah, I think for me, and this isn't the same for everyone, but I think for me, what was important is to have that day job that's, secure, it pays the bills, and then, dip your toe into starting a new venture. Some go the opposite route and they say, I'm going all in, and I respect that a lot, right? But I think for me, I have a 2-year-old, I have a family, mortgage, all of that. And so I think for me, it's starting, more maybe on a smaller scale. So for me, I got the LLC, put the funds up to buy the tap truck and get it outfitted. And I took out a loan actually, I put it on a business credit card, which incentivizes me to pay it off within the first year. So I kind of got crafty with it. I don't know how great of advice that is, but for me, I needed that incentive of like, all right, I need to make this amount to pay that off to break even, and then, move forward from there. But I think my advice is, if you've been thinking about it for a long time and you have a good plan and you have the means and the resources to do it, just take that first step, whatever it is. Maybe the first step is you quit your job, or you go and just go all in, or maybe that first step is just, getting the LLC to get started. And so I think that would be my advice. And then second is, to be an entrepreneur, you really have to have that bone in your body. And I think if you're watching this, if you're involved in Brain Bites Academy, you probably do, right? Because that's really the premise of the academy. But just understand that it's going to be a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of challenges, but like, look at the challenges as learning experiences. For example, my husband and I, we've had so many challenges of just transporting this little truck, where one time we almost ruined the whole thing, and it was so frustrating, but then we just looked back and said, okay, lesson learned, right? We got something out of that experience, and then, move forward. So that's what I would say. Sorry, long-winded, but
I mean, for us, it's baby steps, and as long as you are moving forward, right? You're learning
yeah.
from experiences, and you just keep on improving how you service your customer, and that should move you in the right direction. I mean, I think if the business is in in how well you can serve your customer, then you'll be okay. If your goal in mind is that, then I think success is just around the corner. That's in my opinion, my humble
Yeah.
opinion.
No, I think you're right. And then also part of what I did is I just said, okay, what's the worst that could happen? Right. And then if you can stomach the worst that can happen, and it's more a fear-driven decision, then I think you have your answer. Sometimes they're like, financially, if you're putting everything into it, right, then that might be a different discussion. But I think you're spot on with that too, is focus on the client, the customer, focus on the mission, why you're doing it, versus, I'm doing this to make money. I think, yes, businesses make money, but if you're thinking that way, usually those businesses kind of fail quicker than if you're focused on like, what's my why behind it.
That's right. That's right. As long as you know your why, because the reason your business exists is to fill a need. So somewhere there's people that need your services. So if you look at it from that perspective, that you are filling a need, you're doing, service to someone else, then you have your why,
Yep,
then you're
100%.
to to finish your mission, like you said, whatever the goal was to reach for that customer, to give to that customer. Yeah, that's great. So speaking back to the business, how do you think collaboration and networking is? I mean, I just love talking to business owners, because most of the people that I meet, they're so positive and so excited about what they're doing. So tell me a little bit about how you have gone out and networked, and how do you find that helpful for your business or even for yourself, growing into a business owner, as a person, just as a business owner in general.
Yeah, no, I think I honestly treat networking like a second job or a third or fourth, however many jobs I have right now. Because it's extremely important. And I think for me, it's something, it was outside of my comfort zone in the beginning. I'm like an introverted extrovert. And so I really had to work on it and understand the importance. And so, I think what I actually do now, both in my finance job and then this, Vino on Wheels, is I actually create what's called a network map. I don't know if there's like an actual term for it, but essentially, like even internally at my job, I right when I got there, I said, okay, who are the key stakeholders or who are the key people that, I have a job to do. This will help me get the job done on behalf of the client. And so I was pretty strategic about it while being genuine, right? So the whole point is getting to know people and understand how they tick. And so for me, whenever I approach those conversations, it's understanding what are their motivations, right? Like what's on their plate that they have to get done or what makes them tick, and getting to know that first. Because if you come in with just like, whether it's you're pitching your product, right, or you're trying to get something done, if you don't understand what their motivations are and what will help them, it doesn't really go as far. And then eventually it just becomes more natural from a relationship standpoint. And so I think that's something that was a learning for me, even on Vino on Wheels, is it's not just about like being on Instagram and doing ads and, networking that way, which is important. And that's, how I got to know Brain Bites Academy, for example, but it's also getting out there in the community. Like for me, I go to different venues that are hosting events and I introduce myself, in person and say, this is what I'm this is the service I offer. And a lot of it's about trust. Like, do they trust recommending you? And part of that is being in person and seeing them face to face. So.
Absolutely, I agree. I just at Brain Bites, we have robotics teams, and what we find is because the students are very techie like, so they're
Yeah.
introvert in the majority of them. So by being part of a robotics team and being forced to present their projects or innovations, speak in front of the judges and in front of other experts, it gets them out of the shell. So even though they don't realize it, behind the tech, like you said, you're a finance person, but you had to get out of your shell to
Yeah.
pursue relationships so you could get your job done,
Yeah.
essentially. So the same with us, with these students, they need to get out of their shell to get a good score in their presentation.
Yeah.
It's not just knowing your technical piece of the puzzle, but you must be out there speaking to people, connecting to people, networking, and sharing what you know. Essentially, that's what you're
Yeah.
doing, so they can, if they like what you have to offer, then they will invite you to fix their problem, whatever that is. Problem in quotes, quote unquote problem, whatever their need is that you're filling with your business. So I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
important. It's hard to do too, but and then once you get used to it, right? Some days I'm like, oh, I'm sick of it's hard to do, but it's, it's part of launching a business. It's part of everyday jobs.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's so important. Um, Being that you're this busy, a mother of a 2-year-old, a business owner, and a professional in the finance field, how do you balance it? And a wife, how do you balance? That's another job. How do you balance everything?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, I have the best work-life balance." Like it's difficult, right? And it's something I work at every day. I mean, I even hired a career coach to help me with this and setting boundaries, and especially when like the the bank I work at, the day after I accepted the job, I found out I was pregnant, for example, and that was and so setting the right boundaries and having those conversations. And so I think for me, it's difficult, right? And I think, I went through an experience when I was, I was at a startup financial services firm, as a brand new startup, private equity backed, and I worked, every day. I think I had 2 days off in 2 years, for example. Like it was just too much, right? And I got to a point where my health, was not doing well because of it. And I kind of got to that breaking point where I said to myself, like, I'm never going to let myself get to this point again. And so because of that, I think the strategies that I've put in place specifically with having a daughter now is, when I'm off work, whenever that time is, I try to spend high quality time with my daughter. So for example, weekends, I really try not to work on weekends if I don't have to, because in my prior life I did. And now it's that, there's limited time to get with her, especially with now events on the weekends. And so I think it's, setting the boundaries if you can at work. I know it's very difficult to do, but it's really important, because if you're not healthy, and happy, then that's just going to bleed into whether it's your own venture, or whether it's, you're at a company. But it's hard. Yeah. And for example, we have no daycare today. And so my daughter's napping right now. And so I'm hoping she doesn't wake up. Plus I'm working, but it's doable. It's definitely doable. It's not gonna look the same at all points in time. So
Yeah, I agree. It's just giving different values at different times at different things. You can't value everything at 100% at all times.
exactly.
Your
Yeah.
daughter is only going to be 2-1, so make sure you value that time. It's super important. I totally agree with that. Well, Kayla, that has been a pleasure to speak with
Yeah,
you.
it's great talking to you.
I know my viewers would cherish this candid interview, and thank you for sharing about your business and about your professional lives. And hopefully it will motivate some young people to follow their dream and their passion. And when it gets hard, to remember that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
There is, just take the first step. That's my best advice. But yeah,
Thank
this was great. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.